I've seen a lot of people that have been where an employer has paid them wrongly through naivety, or even if they've found out they keep it quiet. That to me is quite shocking behaviour.
If you suspect that your employer is underpaying you, what should you do first?
First off,
Max Whitehead,
expert employment relations veteran and influential voice in the media,
who's helped thousands of employees and employers over 40 years, and he's seen it all.
How did you build your reputation?
the best way to do that was tell stories.
What did you do?
It was just the most amazing experience.
Can an employer really fire you on the spot?
Yes, they can.
Is it legal for a boss to read an employee's private emails or monitor them?
The good example of bullying is when the boss comes in the morning, says hello to everyone, not you. I lost all heart. I've lost heart in the judiciary. I've lost heart in the court. I've lost heart in everything over that.
How do you get up from a knockdown like that?
I think really if you're going to go for a pay rise, put your justification.
Quick one. Mina here. Thank you for watching this episode. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. One thing that you can do for me is to please hit the subscribe button below. I promise you that if you hit subscribe, I'm going to work hard to make sure that my episodes are really good, that will get better and better. So, do we have a deal? Okay. Back to the episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode with Max Whitehead, the CEO and founder of Max Whitehead Group. He's an expert in many things, but I'm so delighted to have him here. Welcome, Max, to the show.
Oh, thanks, Mina. Thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate this.
You're an expert at employment relations and employment law and all the rest of it, but you're not a lawyer.
No, I'm not a lawyer. And the good thing about that fraternity is you don't actually have to be a lawyer. So there are a lot of lawyers that are actually in my area who've let their license expire because why keep paying these enormous fees that the Law Society require and they're not required?
It's interesting. A lot of people know you in New Zealand. You're well known. Just, we had a clip that played just before about who you are and the accomplishment that you've made. Some people don't know who you are. Why would someone stay and listen for the whole of this episode?
Well, I'm an unusual character. I have a weird background. I've come through the ranks, and I think that's actually equipped me so much better for looking after employees and employers. I've been on both sides, and I've been in heavy battles, and I've seen the perspective from both sides. So I think that gives me a really fair perspective to approach matters and disputes. So I think if you want to see the secrets and to get at my thoughts on what's fair and reasonable, well, hang in here because I think it's going to get exciting. Knowing you, Mina, you're going to really grill me here.
Well, it was really lovely to be on your show actually not too long ago. Last year.
You were fascinating. Again, you've got a really interesting background, which I think should be exploited more. I think it really is interesting. No people realise what you've been through.
Oh, thank you very much. If people want to, listen to that episode, they're welcome to go to your YouTube channel and have a listen. Max Whitehead on YouTube. What was the name of your channel? Just Max Whitehead. Why is it Max Whitehead?
What's it called? Sorry, it's Talk TV.
Talk TV, that's right.
Yeah.
But today is about you, and I want to delve into you as a business owner. You have a business, and you started and you scaled it, and you've made it succeed. A lot of our listeners are people who are thinking about starting a business and wanting to start, maybe started already, wanting to learn how to scale. And obviously lots of other people listening who may not be in that category. But I want to learn from you. Take me back to when you were thinking about leaving your corporate job and getting into business. Why did you do that?
Well, my father, first off, owned a little business, and I didn't take much interest in it when I was a little boy. But I certainly saw some of the difficulties he went through and also some of the privileges he got out of it as well. A bit of spare time occasionally with family to go off during the week. Those sort of things were, quite unique and pleasant to have. Plus, we lived in a very comfortable environment thanks to Dad's hard work. All he was a town painter, but he did it really, really well. He was able to buy a brand new car every year. Now, a bit of an extravagance, I know, but that shows what a success he made of his business. Everything was about reputation. For Dad, son, don't ruin my reputation in this town. It was only a little wee town. 2,000 people.
I agree. I think reputation is so important. How did he keep his reputation?
Well, he used to go to the local town Rotary Club. I know they're old folks now, but certainly in those days they were the key to the whole town. And with that, he was dealing with the most prominent people in town. But he always kept his same character. So within that, he gained a reputation of giving everybody a fair go and doing a good job. And he grew with that. And, of course, the more he got known, and you're in a little town, it's easy to get known. Everyone talks. And of course, to keep yourself clean in terms of scandals. He was very nervous when I was a teenager, I've got to say, which is probably understandable. But he drilled that into me. Don't embarrass me, son.
You were inspired by your father. So you went ahead and went into your corporate career. Just quickly tell me why you left that corporate job.
Yeah, and that's where I didn't do very well. Look, so for years and years I worked for people, and I climbed up the ladder and got right into, from a small town motor mechanic as I did my apprenticeship with that, and I grew right up into the corporate level, and where I was a paid consultant for the EMA to go and help employers. All the time I keep reflecting, why don't they do, they should do this. Oh, for goodness sake, my manager, no, be respectful, Max, always be respectful. So, I would hold back and think to myself, if I ran this business, I'd run it completely different. And that really inspired me to think, maybe I should. Maybe I could compete with these guys. Wonder if I could. But I went for some big corporates. I was working for Feltex, Auckland City Council, and you can't compete with that because you can't be a council. Ports of Auckland, these big timers, you don't compete with. But in terms of being a consultant, I thought that's kind of tempting, and there wasn't many around in those days. So that's what inspired me. I really thought I needed to have a go on my own.
Why employment relations?
I gravitated to that. I had all sorts of jobs before that, and I could run through them, but would be here a while. But what I found the most satisfaction in that. So I found myself hooked up in disputes early in my career and as an employee. And with that, I felt that I had a voice that was, and made good reason, where both parties would actually have a good listen to me. I made enemies, and it never bothered me too much. I mean, I didn't like to have enemies, but it's part and parcel where you've got to go if you've got an opinion and you need to drive hard. And I love representing people. I love helping people for some reason. I go out of my way to help people now, and that seems to give me a lot of satisfaction.
It's an interesting gravitation. Like, I would certainly not, feel called to that, and thank God that you have. Talk to me about your business days, early business days, how clearly that idea came from an experience. So people often ask, how do I get an idea if I want to start a business? And how do I turn that into something that makes money? How did you turn your expertise into a money-making thing?
Well, when I was a consultant with EMA, I looked around, and there were a few smaller consultancies starting up. And I looked at them. Some were completely hopeless. Some were pretty good. Some were corrupt. But anyway, I went to one of the most successful. Now, known to be a brutal employer, and I went to him and asked for a job. And he said, "You sure?" He said, "Yes." He was quite startled that I wanted a job with him. But what I went there for was to see how he operated. And then I sat there going, the moment things aren't getting comfortable, Max, you move on. And he's a friend of mine today. We're going to have coffee, I think, later this week. So I learned so much from that man. Some of the things I couldn't do as much as him, and I haven't made as much money as him, but I think I'm quite proud of my ethics and my way of that I've stabilised myself. But I said to myself, the moment I feel uncomfortable, that's when you start your business. And it didn't take long, 9 months or so.
Talk me through that. So you quit your job, and then it took you 9 months until you started a business, or it took you 9 months to make money?
Oh, no, I worked for this man for 9 months, and then I started my business. And of course, I had clientele from the past when I was working at EMA.
All right.
And some became very good friends. One particularly, the week I started my own business, I let him know, and everyone else I knew. And next thing, he knocked on my door. He said, we had a Christmas party. There was a guy there that assaulted my HR manager. would you be interested to do an inquiry investigation and come back with some conclusions for us? I'd be happy to. Well, there I was, a $6,000 job on the first day I started, more or less. Or it would have been the second or third day. And I was just putting my business together then.
$6,000, and what year are we talking about?
Oh, this was about 22 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good money, but it was a long time. A lot of interviews. I had to interview all the people at the party and to carry on through. So there was a lot of work to be done. And the stakes were high because someone had been assaulted, and also, was it fair? Because this was a staff member's husband, and they were in denial as well and protecting their husband. So there was going to be casualties at the end of this. So it had to be handled quite delicately, but also forcefully.
And you solved it?
I solved it, and then they never left me ever since, and even today they're still my client.
Do they always have disputes going on in their jobs?
No, I mean, I hardly had much to do with them of late, so less and less. I mean, that's part of my service is I will go through and do the hard stuff, get into the brutal side of it, but then at the end of the day, I'll make recommendations on how they can avoid that happening again.
So talk me through how you were able to build your reputation as a employment relation expert, because when you started, you could have been a nobody, and who would know Max? Why would I even hire Max? But how did you build your reputation?
I did everything everyone says you got to do. I went out delivering pamphlets in every workplace that there was around the place. I found people, even when I went to knock on the door, I found people weren't very interested. Here's another hawker. Here's somebody coming to sell me something. And sure enough, I was. And so I felt, that's not the way, but they do need me. Some of these guys ended up becoming clients as well.
Can I just stop you? Did you know where you wanted to go? Like what offices and what businesses? Did you make a list? Did you think about it? How do you formulate these things? Because you could have a list and then you turn up somewhere and they could be the wrong people, right? It's kind of like your prospect list. If someone thinking, okay, how did you know? What would you say?
Okay, so on I started the business, and then I need premises. And of course, I changed all that later on. I work from home now. Right. But certainly, I joined a friend of mine who was competing with me as well. So we're competitors, but we shared a premise. And he also did recruitment. And I've got to say, he made a fortune doing recruitment. Wow. And both of us were doing employment relations as well. So when I was in those premises, we had little boardroom, little meeting room, all those sort of things. And it was on the North Shore here. And so I thought, what would be ideal would be to have a business quite close, my clientele quite close, and I could visit them, go back, give them a better service. Yep. So that's where I decided to door knock all the way around, all those little businesses around us. And that's where I got the rolling eyes. Oh, no, the boss is not here, and I could see them upstairs. You'll have to come back another day, maybe, or maybe don't come back at all. He's too busy to talk to you. And I'm quite empathetic to that, because when I'm in the midst of drafting submissions or whatever, I don't really need interruptions. Yeah. If somebody trying to sell me something for their benefit, not for mine. So I was empathetic with that. So I started thinking about it. But you do need it. Because if you don't get my services and my help to prevent these things happening, then what can I do to get your attention? And so...
Who were the kind of businesses that you helped back in the day?
They ranged all sorts of things. This is, you imagine on the North Shore walking down the road. So it could be from, there were fabric, people that dealt with making clothing. There were chemical companies. There were engineers where it was a dirty, filthy workplace, which I was used to from my background. And all thought, how lucky you are to have me, because I've been in this background. But no, they weren't interested. And they just varied immensely from that. And then from there, I sort of worked out, how I'm going to get their attention. And the best way to do that was tell stories, I think. So what I did, when I did have a rather nasty situation to handle for somebody, I wouldn't put their names in, but I would draft a press release and put it out. Well, my biggest dream in the world would be to get on TV, or perhaps a radio, or perhaps just get it published. And lo and behold, it happened.
What did you do?
It was just most amazing experience to have. I'm thinking to myself, wow, this made the paper.
So did you send the press release to like media or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the media companies, I mean, I had to find them myself. I went online and found out what the TV1, TV3, the Herald, all these people, and I drafted up a press release. And lo and behold, it got published. And I'm thinking, there's hundreds of thousands of people reading this right now. And they see Max Whitehead at the top. And I said, I've got to do more of this. How can I do it without overdoing it? And so gave it some thought.
What was in that press release that made the media tick, do you think?
It was something that everybody can relate to. Everyone reads the paper, and what's in it for me? You know that you read the first few sentences. If it has nothing to do with you, I was just going to say Trump is actually affecting everybody today. But normally, if it was an overseas thing, I would give it very short reading and then move on. But if you can relate to it and it's something that could affect you, so I wrote the articles in that particular way. This has potential to affect everybody in the workplace.
Right. So you drew on your own experience and in like an example, like a case, and you wrote it out and told the media that this has been terrible because X, Y, Z, and it's going to impact other people. And if you're not going to take action, or people need to not take action, then let's say, so it's just not good. Like it's bad. And so this is how you captured the attention of media.
You think about it, it's free advertising. You know, to get an advertisement in the newspaper would have cost me, $10,000, maybe $20,000. And here I got it for nothing. So that's my secret, folks. I mean, you shouldn't be using this idea because I'm going to have a lot of competition, but it does work, and it's free. The thing that's happening today, of course, is mainstream media is not as popular as it was. So their audiences are reducing dramatically. So obviously, podcasts are the way to go, or somewhere like that, whereas you can get some attention.
I was just going to ask you about which do you think it has changed over the years in terms of writing the press release and sending it out, or has the relevance changed? Do you think there's still relevance in terms of the work that you do? Obviously, people listening might have all sorts of different business ideas, and they could be relevant. What's relevant now isn't relevant back then, and vice versa. Like the whole premise of knocking on doors right now, you probably want to knock on doors in offices, and there'll be no one to answer because they're all working from home. And so how do you reach people? Like you were talking about knocking doors and then sending a press release, and obviously now you talked about podcasts and all the rest of it. What else do you think has changed in terms of getting your marketing out?
Well, obviously mainstream has diluted a lot. So and people are relying a lot on social media, and you need to get a story across, which again, what people can relate to. It's not like I see a lot of people putting shows up or on social media that go, "Hi, I'm Max Whitehead." And I'm going, well, I'm really not interested in who you are, Max. I really want to know what you're about to offer. So jump straight to the subject matter. Those sort of things are really different. So it's a different world from actually going to mainstream media. I still am lucky enough. I still appear on ZB radio up here. I get an hour a month roughly, which is quite a privilege. And again, there's hundreds of thousands of people, and I get a lot of phone calls from that. But yeah, it has changed. Now, the other thing was I found the media then over the years got a bit more reluctant to deal with employment problems because there's so many out there. And they just got saturated. Once they gave me a bit of attention, everyone else is piling in. And that became kind of boring to the readers, I suppose. There was so many of them out there. But I found it very important that what helped me in my world as well is keeping on top of politics. So in my world of employment law, the laws change every time there's a change of government. So you get a Labor government. Well, the word Labor says why? Because they favour the employees. You'll get a national government, and they will favour the employer. So it was like a window wiper. going backwards and forwards, and we've put up with this for decades. But to be on front of it and to explain it to the media in a way which is not polluted with politicians and give it from a perspective of somebody from the ground floor, they love it. And so that gives you a bit of a leaning in.
Absolutely. So there's so much I want to ask you now, but in terms of, we're going to stick to marketing, what has been the best campaign that you've had that you really felt pushed your brand, your business, and been able to scale it? Because we just talked about how you started your business and what you did, and you figured out, that perhaps public relation is a good way to get the word out and perhaps knocking on doors. How long did it take actually from when you first did these things to when you started seeing results or seeing that it's helping out?
Well, one good example, and this is a good story, is I'm happily at home and then get a call from TV1 and going, oh, no, important. Anyway, I was excited, and they said, Max, would you like to come in tonight, because we got a little show here, and we've got some footage to show you, and we're going to get another guest in, and we think you'll have different opinions, and so we would like to film you both together and perhaps even debating the issues. And I said, what's the film going to be about? And they said, well, it's about a dispute. We won't tell you what happens until you see it. About a little dispute or problem in the workplace. Okay, that's fine. So I front up, and I'm getting nervous because I think as it got closer, they told me, we've got a QC on the other side. QC, Queen's Counsel. That in those days, it's King's Counsel now. Now it's the top run of employment law or lawyers. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not even a lawyer, and I'm way out of my depth here. I'm going to get beaten up publicly, absolutely annihilated. So as nervous I was, even driving in there, I was ringing somebody, can you give me a bit of advice what to do and whatever. Just be yourself, Max, you'll be fine. And calm down, because I don't know. And I was driving, and I missed the intersection I had to go through. Anyway, I finally got to the studio. And I have adopted this thing like a swan. You look very graceful on top, but underneath, it's like now. I'm pedaling like mad, trying to make sure that everything's fine, and I'm coping and giving some good solid answers. Yep. And your adrenaline is at its peak, but you've got to act as if you're calm. And so I adopted this, and when we went, and would you believe the story they put up was one of mine, who I'd put a press release out with. Oh, yeah. And they got actors to act it out. Now, a guy in the workplace, he's called to the reception area, his girlfriend's there, and she's angry with him because, I don't know, if he didn't come home that night or something was really bad. And they started having a big screaming match in reception. And then the boss came out and said to the guy, my office now. And he ended up getting fired. So that left me and this QC sitting side by side, this man beside me. Yeah. And he was very pleasant in the green room while we were getting ready, and here we had to go to battle. And of course it was excellent viewing, but I've got to say I did rather well. I think that gained me a lot of attention and also gained me a lot of good reputation. Here I am, an advocate, not a lawyer, an advocate, but able to stand up for the small guy. I understood the law very, very well, and was able to articulate it in a manner which really sounded reasonable and fair in those circumstances.
So did that help you in your business to really push it upwards? I just often got, hey Max, I saw you on the television the other night. And I got that all the time, because in those days people watched the news or watched the 30 minutes afterwards, and that was really gave me a lot of attention and a good footing up, and gave me some confidence too. You've been on so many TV interviews. Yes, I have. Yeah. It's incredible. I've been very lucky. Is this why you are successful? I think so. I don't advertise much at all, but I think that really does give me a bit of a leg up here. I think it's given me an advantage over my competitors. And also, it's very comforting for people when they see that the media trust you to give advice and be invited back again and again and again. They would say, well, if he was saying anything that's rubbish here, then obviously we would not be happy with it.
So they wouldn't have him back, so they keep coming in. So that's a very good tick.
And you scaled your business. I suppose you had you by yourself, and then you had other employees with you. Or tell me about your the process of starting just by yourself and then growing your business, and how big did it become really?
Well, I got to the point I had probably 2 staff in the office and some sitting outside as well. I'm now at the point where everybody sits outside the office and they work from home, and it suits everybody. It really does. I don't have employees, I have contractors, and I find that works better for them as well. They all have other customers and clientele, but it also gives everybody a bit of flexibility. Sometimes I have to wait for them to do some things, or sometimes they'll say, Max, I can't help you with this client because I've got so much on my own business. But that's the pros and cons of coming to it, because who would have an employee, says this man who gives advice about employees and employers every day, because it's a huge liability for businesses. But from an employee's perspective, who give their life and soul to a business, I can certainly see why they have high expectations.
So do you scaled it to 2 employees or more? And then the height of it?
I've got a person who does my debt collecting. I've got a person who does my accounts. I've got a person who does all my bookkeeping, and she also does invoicing and everything for me. So there's 3 independent people sit outside. And I've got 2 consultants that work for me. So when I get heavy into these issues, now I'm getting older, I don't do as much myself. So I pass it on to them, and they act for the Whitehead group and go out and will defend or attack or whatever it is that they have to do.
And so when you are trying to scale again this enterprise that you've got, how do you know when you need to hire somebody? And
it's workload.
Do you think, I suppose, do you hire them before it gets crazy, or before you see that it's going to get busier, or when you get busy then you go and try and find somebody?
It's another hard lesson I learned.
Yeah.
So I was whining and dining with that guy who became a really good client. Remember the one I had to go and sort out some problems the week I started? Okay. So we're off having a few beers on a Friday night. And he said, what are you doing in the weekend, Max? And I said, I've got to do invoicing, I've got to do this and this and this. He said, what? I said, I've got all this administration to do, and I've got to write a couple of letters and these sort of things. And he said, why are you doing all that? He said, how much do you charge an hour? And I told him. And then he said, and how much would it cost you to get somebody in? And it was like a fraction of the cost. And he said, what sort of idiot are you? He was raising his voice in this bar, and I'm looking around embarrassed. And how right he was. I went home a bit miffed about that, but thought about it. I thought, he's damn right. So that's when I started bringing staff on. And that's the lesson you've learned. When you start getting overloaded and you haven't got time for yourself or your family anymore, that's when you've got to make that's a trigger. It's really go and get some more staff. And I like the contracting of it, because if business dies down a bit, and look, our businesses goes like this because not everyone's consistently got problems, then you can say, well, there's no work on available, but as soon as I do, I'll come back to you. And you pay a little bit more for people on contracts, but why not? They're worth it.
It works for you right now, does it?
It works very well for me.
Yeah.
And, I've had some illnesses in the last few years, and I'm getting older, so it works so much better. And the business just ticks along quietly and calmly all the time. I've just got to keep an eye that everything's being done properly, and that generally is.
What are the lessons that, I suppose, when you think about your business experiences and the years, like 20 years of your business, what would be some of the lessons that you've learned that you're so grateful for that you would happily tell somebody else? This is what I've learned, and 3 things. Please, please, please make sure that you learn from my learning and that you don't make a mistake. I suppose we will be making mistakes. Like I will make mistakes, other people listening. But yeah, like what are the lessons that you've learned?
The very big one I've learned is to work out what your overheads are. Then you work out how much you need each week just to get by. Now what that's telling you is if you don't make that threshold, you're running at a loss that week. And of course, with most businesses, it goes like this, up and down. But you've also got to keep an accountable eye on all that, because it's very easy to get out of control very quickly. And I think a lot of business, so I'm told by the accountants that I deal with, and particularly my accountant, because him and I do a podcast each week. But he tells me there are people out there who have no idea how their business is going, but keep spending and buying a new vehicle and whatever. And he can see it and goes, oh my goodness, and have to have that talk to them. You're out of control here. And if you don't stop, you're going to go broke and be bankrupt. So you've got to pull your head in. So lessons learned, work out what your costs are, work out what your weekly budget should be, and also keep an eye on that cash flow. I think another good tip I got was keep, at least in the early days, it was $40,000. I'll never forget the number, in the bank, black, not in debt, or you're able to source that amount. Keep it black because of emergencies, and I would say even more now if you can. And it's not easy to do, to put that sort of money aside, but once you start, you've got to start small, and once you get going, get on your feet. Don't feel bloated with dough and go off and buy that ute that everyone else has got, and you want to keep up with your friends. Put that money aside and save it for that rainy day, because one day you'll be so thankful it's there. And the second point is that it's really, really important that you keep cash flow in hand. So my accountant years ago said put $40,000 and you've got to have it black into the account. $40,000. I thought, wow. When you're starting out, that seems impossible. But slowly I gained it. And now I would say actually you need more, because it's so important to have that there for a rainy day. It's very, very tempting for people to go and buy another SUV or another brand new car or a brand new computer to make life easy for them, or to keep up the prestige look, then actually save money. But no, put it aside. It's just for those emergencies, because when a rainy day comes and you need it, it's going to be very helpful.
And what was the third point?
Or
maybe there is no third point. I think those 2 points are really, really good. The lessons that you've learned have certainly helped you stay on track, making sure that your business isn't going under. I think focusing on the numbers is really important. I mean, how did you pick an accountant? I mean, it's a difficult one.
It is a difficult one. I went through quite a few.
Yeah.
Look, there is a third point if I just think about it.
Of course.
Particularly in my world, where I can exploit my customers. So people, when they're in distress or going for a dispute, it's like a divorce lawyer can really make it worse, because they can jack it up and go, this is terrible the way you've been treated, and you've got to take these issues, or you can get back at this individual. The way I deal with it is be ethical. And some people get very, very angry and get disappointed with you when you're not angry as well. But you've got to be ethical. You've got to make sure you're fair and reasonable. So I think that's the key to this. Be fair and reasonable on your client, and get your work done and completed as soon as possible to keep their costs down, because you don't want to be a reputation out there to be so expensive.
And that's true. How did you pick your How did you pick your accountant?
How did I pick the accountant?
Yeah.
I had dealings with my current accountant in a was a business group, and he impressed me enormously. Normally the first two I actually had found in a social group. One of my accountants fell in love with his secretary and left his wife, who just had a brand new baby. Now, that didn't impress me much. So I felt that I had to move on from that. And he's growing the immense business. And I got another woman. I felt her heart wasn't in my business. She seemed to be distracted a lot, but a good friend. But I found this guy, and I enjoyed him in the setting with the business people and the advice he was giving at the time. And I thought, this guy, one, he does his research. Two, he's considered. He considers things deeply, and he's not out to be the richest man. But I think He could potentially. Why doesn't he get more like me and be loud and, grab the spotlight? It's not interesting to him. What he wants to do is to do a good job. And that impressed me. So I've gone to him, and I'm very comfortable with him at the moment. So that's a good accountant.
I want to get into the moments when you felt very challenged as a business owner and a founder, and moments when you really were, challenged. Perhaps you could say they are failures.
I've got one right now, and only recently, and my God, it knocked me flat. I've challenged myself. I'm not even sure I want to be in the business anymore. That's how bad it knocked me. So what happened, I've got a client who is a high-profile person, and they were working for a not-for-profit, and they were signed up a contract to earn $100,000 a year. So that was fine. The CEO signed it all up with them, and this person met the board, was introduced to them, that everything's going honky-dory. Except each month would go by was no salary. So she confronted the CEO the CEO and said, "Where's the money?" And he said, "Oh, it's coming. We're waiting for donations," because it was not for profit. But keep going. It's coming. It's coming. We'll back pay you. No worries. It is coming. We've got a big donor coming from Europe. Anyway, 5 months went by, and she's now calling me. And so I said, "You give up that job right now. It's not going to be paying you, I don't think, at all. If I haven't done it in 5 months, something's very, very wrong here." And she goes, "Oh, let me have one more go." So she called the chairperson of the board and said, "What's going on?" And he said, "What's the problem? I haven't been paid my wages." "I didn't know you were on wages." "When did you go on wages?" I said, "I've got a signed contract here. Send it to me." So she sent it to him. And then nothing. So she called back. "What's happening?" "I'll just leave it with me. I'll sort this out. No worries." Okay. He then disappeared. The business was then taken off the market, disappeared. Then all her files that she had were deleted. She rang and rang and rang to get hold of him. No response. It was really awful. Now, in comes Max and goes, "Right, there's no business to sue now to get your wages. But we can sue the individuals who ran the business." So the directors, what about the CEO? Well, he's an ex-bankrupt, we've just found out. So he's got no money. And the board denied, even though they met her, denied that they'd actually employed her. So a long story. I go to the Employment Authority, and the authority go, and the other side put up a big argument. And they said, "Oh, first off, we have to decide if this person is an employee." And I thought, there's a contract there. We've got the minutes of the meeting from when, because the CEO was actually helping us, when they were appointed by the board. So I couldn't work out why they'd want that. So a 2-day hearing to decide that, the Employment Authority did. Then they said, "Right, okay, yeah, definitely an employee. Now we've got to decide whether anyone's at fault here." Oh my goodness, no pay for 5 months? Anyway, it just went on and on and on. 5 years went by.
Whoa.
I know. It happened just before COVID. That didn't help, but it certainly didn't hinder it. The authority member, I would say, really dragged it on. Do you know, at the end of it, said no one's guilty here. All those people on the board are not responsible. It was the CEO. If you want to sue the CEO, let us know. We'll have another hearing. Oh my goodness. So I went to the court. That's the next level up. Appealed it to the court. I thought, "No, you take this. This is not on." The court wouldn't even let me file documents because they were saying, "Oh, it wasn't up to standard. This wasn't up." And I couldn't. I'd issued these documents 4 times, and I'm entitled to work in the court. But in the end, they said, "Max, maybe it's time you got a lawyer." Oh, I thought, how offensive is that? So you need help. So I went to my client and told her what's going on, and she said, "I've had enough." Now, the authority then said, what about costs for these people you've blamed? This is the CEO and all these people that shut the business down and dropped all the documents. She had to pay them $16,000 for accusing them of not paying her wages. Just remember, she's not received any wages.
And 5 years later?
5 years later, she's got to pay another $16,000, buying of her own money, to pay them off for actually accusing them of not paying her wages.
So she was not an employee at the end?
Yes, she was.
And why didn't they pay her then?
Because the business had been wiped off the map. They'd taken it down, and it never longer existed. So we tried to sue the individuals, the chairperson and
and still that's not going to help.
The authority said, no, they're not to blame.
That's ridiculous. Do you think that was a fair ending?
That's why I lost all heart. I've lost heart in the judiciary. I've lost heart in the court. I've lost heart in everything over that.
Yeah.
So I'm really challenging myself.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no expert at all in what you do, but from that simple story, it does sound like that lady should have been paid wages and should not have waited for 5 years. And
now, high-profile individual,
shouldn't be
she's
paid
given me
60
permission. I've written this up in a story. It is it's a long, dramatic story, and she gave me permission to use her name. Everybody will know her, and I've said, no, we better be careful because somebody will have a swing at us or sue us because there's a lot of bad people in here, including the Employment Authority, in my view. So let's not do that. But I'm still tempted, I have to say, because the injustice being done here is immense.
Who do you think should be put to account for that? Do you think that, and also, do you think that is a failure for the justice system in New Zealand?
You got it in that one. The lawyer he wasn't, I don't think she was a lawyer acting on the other side, but they did a good job of putting up barriers everywhere. It was ridiculous arguments. It kept blaming the CEO and his bad character. That's the person they recruited to run their business. And said that he didn't actually have permission to employ her, even though she was interviewed by the board first. Anyway, so a good job by her. So not to blame. The one that needs to be blamed is the Employment Authority, taking 5 years on a case which could have been done, in my view, in 3 months or 4 months, and then to come up with a decision which was totally unjust. Am I embittered about it? Yes. Am I angry about it? Did I challenge myself that I'm actually worthy? Yes, I did. And I think I am worthy to put up reasonable cases. And I think my judgment in this was pretty fair. I can't understand the decision. The points we made in the authorities' case, they never even mentioned them. They never mentioned the deleting of all the documents. They never mentioned the board meeting where we had the minutes where they met my client, and we got transcripts of that. So, yeah, you've hit a nail on the head right here.
Why didn't you get a lawyer?
Well, I did, and he said, just go and pay it up. He told my client to go and just do away with it, and before he even knew the case. He says, it's not worth fighting. You're owed $60,000 in wages. It's not worth it. It's going to cost you more than that to fight it. Well, I was doing work for nothing at this point in time for my client because I wanted to see justice served, and it really wasn't. So she gave up as well.
That's a bit sad, I think.
Oh, she's very upset.
Has she been able to move on in her life and get a new role? Or has that situation affected her career?
She has got a new role, which the public would know who it is if I said what it is.
That's okay.
But it is a public role, and that's where she shines because she is in the public arena all the time.
Right. How do you get up from a knockdown like that?
I think really you look at when you get a client knocking on your door who doesn't know about this and trust you, you feel like you need to do your best for them. And I think I can do work for them. I won't probably go again personally to the court, and the authority I've lost total confidence in because of that. But not all authority members are as bad as this individual I feel that served this injustice. So I am losing a lot of confidence, some of the authority members, but again, I think that comes down to my years of experience and being able to see what's fair and equitable, whereas these individuals come from government jobs or they've come from some place where they really haven't had that broad exposure to, perspectives from individuals on either side. They pick a side as soon as you come in. And I find that's not really the way it should be.
I want to ask you some interesting questions that perhaps our viewers might have for an employment relation expert like yourself. And I've got them listed here.
Okay.
And
Fire.
I'm going to fire them. Okay. The first one is, what is the biggest mistake employees make when signing an employment contract?
The restraint of trade. They will leave it in there. They asked me to comment on a particular contract, and I'll do it and say, do not sign it with that restraint of trade. They want the job so bad, they will just sign it.
What's a restraint of trade?
So what that does, it can forbid you for working for another year in that industry. The whole industry, again, you can't work in competition to them, those sort of things. Now, it's fair for an employer to restrain someone not to steal their clients and not to take them away. I think that's reasonable. But to stop them from actually working in the whole fraternity, perhaps that's where their skills are, is unreasonable and unfair.
I actually had a question about that, because what if you hire somebody and they work for you for a while, then they learn some skills, and this is so common, but they learn some skills, they get good at the job, they get to meet your clients, then they get really good, and then they move on, and then they take all these clients away and start their own thing, and then you're left with nothing. How would you deal with that?
There's an implied term in every employment contract that you are not allowed to breach of confidence. Even if you've left the employer or the employer's dismissed you, you're still not allowed to breach the confidence. Confidential stuff. And the client list could be part of that. So there has been some successful cases where an employer has said, hey, you went off and you used the client list and you've stolen all their clients. Now, there have been. It's not an easy one to win. To win,
yeah.
No.
So how can you prove that? How can you prove that this ex-employee of mine went away and took them? The clients could have sought out my employee in his new business and gone off. So
well, there was one who actually went off and before he even left the business was encouraging the clients to go with him in his new business. And of course
that's
they got
a big
wind.
no-no, of
That
course.
is huge. That is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
It's a breach of fraternity, infidelity.
Yep.
And we see that in marriages, but man, that is a complete breach. So is it easy to prove? It's not hard to disprove because you show them your client list and the courts or whatever, and show them ones that have left you to go to this other individual. Well, that's pretty clear evidence. So for an employer, I think it's reasonable for them to say, don't steal our clients. But if they want to compete, even the judiciary are reluctant to enforce a restraint because competition is the substance of our society. So they should be able to compete. But next door, there's a famous case where a coffee cart, he had a restraint on him not to operate within, I think it was 500 metres or something of the other coffee cart. And he did. And of course, bang, he got copped it by the judiciary. Yeah. Fair enough, my view. Fair enough.
Yeah. Can an employer really fire you on the spot? Yes,
they can. So if you've breached a serious problem, say you went in and shot one of your colleagues, I'd say you're fired. If assaulted somebody or you did something dramatic, you went and cleaned out the warehouse over the weekend, those things where it's blatant and it's serious, yeah, you can. The other times are, and this sticks in my throat a bit, is the 90-day trial period. The employer can give you notice immediately, and then you can say to you, would you like to go home now because you're finished? And that notice period, they can be gone by that afternoon if they're agreeable to go. Now, the other thing is this government now are looking at anyone who's paid over $180,000 won't have any personal grievance protection for unjustified dismissal. So those individuals could be fired on the spot too, and there's no recourse for them. So there's two that the government actually said, no, there's no problems, you can do it as you want.
Do you think that's fair?
No. No, I think murderers get a chance to have rights to the judiciary to get justice. I think there's got to be a good reason to dismiss somebody because that's their livelihood, that's their... And there are most employers are good people. I've acted for them all my life, but some of them are ratbags. And they will just get ready because they've got a niece coming through and say, oh, you're fired tomorrow, and bring their niece in to take over because she's more important to them than is, even though they haven't got the skills of the niece.
I suppose when you're talking about all of that, it makes me wonder and ask, what is the most shocking case that you have had to handle, apart from the one that you've just mentioned?
Well, that's top of the pops. One. Yeah, I've got to say that really does top the pops.
And it's recent too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that would be the most shocking case?
I would say so at this point in time. I've seen a lot of injustices done, and I've seen a lot of people that have been where an employer has paid them wrongly, generally through naivety, or even if they've found out, they keep it quiet. That to me is quite shocking behaviour. And it's not an easy one to prove that they actually did know, but it does happen.
I was also thinking about a situation that my friend has gone through recently. We were talking about how every time we catch up, she has this drama at her work where she isn't getting along with another fellow employee. And, so I asked her, I said, what have you done? Have you tried to talk to the employee? Yep. Have you tried to talk to your boss? Yep. Okay, what has your boss did? Nothing. Tried to talk about it, there's nothing. And the other person who's causing issues is probably not complying with the process that my friend is trying to do her job, and so there's always like a knocking of heads. And I don't think it's resolved. So what is that? What do you do in this case?
And it's a common issue. So You're not alone. It happens all the time. First off, it's a matter of what the colleague, and that's the bad colleague, is actually doing, which is so bad. If it's something which is against the company policy or against their principles, or it's something unsafe or something like that, well then the employee should take it immediately to the boss. Now she has, and if the boss is not doing anything about it, I would put it in writing to the boss, because that really wakes them up. They don't like anything in writing because there's a record of it then. And because afterwards they go, oh, no, I don't remember talking to whatever her name was, Jenny, and no, I don't recall that. But once it's in writing, no one can take that from you.
Yeah.
And if that fails, then the judiciary. If your employment's been disadvantaged because of lack of action from your employer, you can sue them.
You can sue your employer.
You can sue them.
But what are the chances of an employee suing an employer and losing their job?
Well, if they lost their job, the employer's got to justify why they've lost it. Now, if you lodged a written complaint and the next day you were dismissed, you've got grounds for a personal grievance. And it would say that the grievance, even though the employer will lie, but you could say the grievance was based upon my written complaint, and blaming the employer for lack of action in regards to it. Look, employers don't like disputes. They don't like getting involved. And some of them are nice people, and the nice people are the ones that are actually going to get into trouble. So it's them that I get them coming to me. Max, what am I to do here? I don't want disputes in my workplace, but I don't want to get involved here. It's between these two, and they're friends, and it's more social issue. And then you have to, because if it's disrupting your work, you've got to get involved. Also, you've got to keep people safe. So if they're getting psychologically damaged from this, then you could be held accountable under the Health and Safety at Work Act. So you're going to have to take an action here. Now, the way to probably deal with it would be maybe mediation.
Yep.
Maybe it's to ask them both to a meeting and try and sort it out with them. But there's various ways on how to deal with this in a nice and amicable manner. And at the end of the day, if you can't sort it out, but get them two to sort it out, then you may have to be, righto, from now on, you don't work together. You're both separate and stepped over here. This does that, and to avoid contact if possible.
It's so fascinating. And the other question I had for you was, is it legal for a boss to read an employee's private emails or monitor them and watch them out, I suppose? Like, look out for what they're doing because they don't trust them, or they want to check, are you doing your job?
Well, I would say to every employee, whatever you put on an email, whatever you put on the boss's system is not confidential. The boss owns it. So the answer to that is yes, they can read their emails because it's theirs. It belongs to the business. Right. Now, they can't deliberately go in to see, what's their relationship right with the moment and between the husband and wife. That's not the purpose they go in there. It's going in there for business purposes. And if there's a myriad of emails, perhaps he's contacting his wife on a regular basis or having huge arguments on there, it could say, well, you're disrupting the workplace, and that's no longer tolerable. You now desist in that behaviour. So, yeah, employers can. And conversations, all sorts of things. Now, watch out for cameras, of course. They're all around the workplaces these days.
That's true. But there's cameras everywhere for safety. But are you talking about different kind of cameras?
Oh, well, they can have cameras with...
magnification.
I've just been acting for a person who runs a taxi type business, and they have cameras in their vehicles, and it's of a type, so it's not a taxi, but he had no idea, but the cameras, they were listening. So they were listening to his conversation with me, and when they disciplined him, they said, you've been telling Max Whitehead all this rubbish. And I've said, how the heck did he know? And my client said, I don't know. He said, the cameras. I said, they voice act. I mean, they get sound. And he said, I don't know. Maybe. I said, well, I think that's the only way they can do it. They were listening in.
What happened?
It's still going through its ropes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that person who is not an employee, is a contractor, is in a dubious position right now because they're trying to find a reason to move them on.
What is, if you suspect that your employer is underpaying you, what should you do first?
Yeah. So first off, approach the employer. You go to the employer and you're saying, hey, boss, I see this calculation is working out this and this. And most people will go to the pay office or wherever it may be and challenge them. And 90% of the time, the employer will push back. So then I would suggest they put it in writing. And again, that they take it more seriously because there's a record of them trying to put it through. And if that doesn't if that doesn't work, then they can come to someone like me and get representation, or they can take it themselves. They can lodge an application to the Employment Relations Authority seeking a wage arrears claim. So they lodge it for a claim for no wages for a period of time. They've got to be prepared to put up the documentation. So what are my advice to the clients, and plenty of them might actually do it on their own, by the way, I say to them, ask for the wage and time records. Employees have the right to the wage and time records of their own. And then do your calculations, and then the employer's had an opportunity to fix it, and they haven't, so file it.
Do you think that you would be on the wrong side of your boss if you get involved? Like, I'm an employee and I want to get a raise and I engage you. Isn't that going to mar the relationship with my boss because you're involved? Because now I'm bringing someone of an expert to help me, and because you're not doing anything for me and you're not going to pay me as much as I want to be paid, type thing.
What happens immediately in those situations is the boss will go and get somebody else to come and represent them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
Because they get intimidated. Yeah. Because it's like when the boss brings in their lawyers, the worker will button up immensely because they just feel intimidated because the lawyers are sitting there taking notes and watching them and being, whatever.
Being lawyers.
Yes. And so that's very intimidating. So I don't intrude unless it's, I would say to them first off, I would certainly tell the people, if you're going to go for a pay rise, put your justification in writing. But put it not from your perspective. I've got needs at home. It's not going to go anywhere with the boss.
Right. Okay.
But what you do need to say is, boss, I've really done you well this year. I've got some more new skills that are very helpful to you. I've learnt more. Your business is doing more benefit from me. I believe that I'm worthy of an increase from this. Also, I note that there is not a lot of me around, so other people could be interested, but I'm not interested in leaving you if we can make sure that my pay is at a reasonable level. That sort of discussion can be very helpful.
It's very handy. And have you been involved in situations like that before, where someone wanted to get a pay rise and you got involved?
Yeah, no, I don't like to get involved with that because I think they should do it, but I would help them probably put a letter together.
Right, yeah.
And then I would coach them into what it is that the employer wants to hear, which will make them good, because the employer doesn't have to give them a pay rise.
Bullying in the workplace has been thrown off, the term has been thrown about left, right and centre. I do not know anymore what is bullying and what is normal behaviour. Like, if your boss comes up to you in the morning and say, hi, good morning to everybody, but they don't say good morning to you, or if your employee does that, another fellow employee says good morning and not to you, is that considered bullying?
Yeah, it can be. It can be very much so. And I think that is nothing worse. I mean, it's like the individual when you go into the tea room, you hear them slap their book down with a bang and then walk out and slam the door behind them.
Yeah.
What exactly have they done wrong? I just shut my book and left the room. Yeah. What have I done wrong? That's their excuse. You've got to describe the behaviour. But let's get back to it. Yes, it could well be bullying. Now, you're quite correct about the word bullying. It's on every personal grievance nearly. The word will be there somewhere. And it's the flavour of the week, obviously. Now, it's difficult to... There are a few interpretations of what it means, but it means repeated behaviour or something extreme behaviour, which would be deemed as bullying. Now, repeat behaviour, if someone forgot to say good morning to you, it's not bullying because they may have forgotten. But if it happens every morning, it's bullying. It probably is bullying, and it is, making you, demeaning you of some regard. So the idea would be to deal with that would be to lodge a written complaint. And I think that would be the best way to go about it. And if it doesn't get resolved, then you're going to have to escalate it. And again, it may come to someone like me, but at least raise it with the employer first. Now, if it's a colleague, you raise it with the employer. Or I'd face the colleague first. Why are you not saying good morning to me? Or, why are you angry? Or why did you say all that? Because that really is quite personal. And then it got no response. Then I'd go through what I've just said, put it in writing to the boss. And let the boss deal with it. Now, the employers out there listening, you have a legal responsibility to investigate a complaint of bullying. It's awful for them because they roll their eyes on some occasions, go, this is somebody who's super sensitive. Yeah, and it's no bullying going on at all, but they have to investigate it. So it's very hard on employers because the worker, who could be quite a good worker, goes, what the heck's going on? Why are you doing this to me? Do you want me to go? Do you want me to? Because most of them jump to conclusion. It's the boss trying to tell them to get out. And it's not. They just have to go through a process. So it's very tough on employers. It's sometimes better to get an external person to come and do an investigation.
Not yourself, as in?
Yeah, because that doesn't look like bias. And also whatever comes up with a recommendation, then you can say, well, this was done by an independent party, which is better than yourselves.
Has there been... the spectrum of bullying can go from what to what? Like, can it be as simple as or as serious as?
Well, the example you gave was very, very good because the one of not even speaking to you is pretty subtle. And they can go then to the one of bullying you where actually you're physically manhandled or whatever and forced. I had a friend, many years ago, who was very proud of himself. He grabbed the salesman. He was down in the factory, and the salesman came up to him and said, "So and so and so and so and so." He goes, "Why did you do that?" And then he grabbed him by the tie and pushed his head under the trough, under the water. Now, that's bullying. That's a gross bullying.
That's really clever.
Yeah, he was quite proud of himself for doing that. You imagine a guy in a white shirt and a tie, having that happen to him. It's just not acceptable.
I think it's the subtle ones, the subtle...
Yeah, they're the challenging ones.
Yeah, the vague behaviour and attitude that you find in the workplace.
And they're common as, we'll get them where they will fail to invite them to meetings. fail to get them involved with things that they always have been involved with in the past.
Yeah.
And that is really hurtful to some people. And is it bullying? Yeah, well, it can be.
What should the employee do about it?
Again, put in writing the complaint. If it doesn't get resolved, then escalate it to someone like external like us, or take it to the employment authority yourself.
Do you think that when they get excluded, it's a sign that we don't want to involve you anymore, and we want less and less of you, therefore you should get it and then leave?
Yep.
But then also, especially if an employee is so valuable and an original, been in the company for like 20 years, they are too valuable to be let go, but they're still being bullied. They were in a position, I know somebody in this case, they were in a great position and would be in meetings of all sorts and have, a lot of responsibilities, and those responsibilities started to get taken off them slowly. And it's actually fine because they've got less to do, which is great. But it's not a nice way to do it.
No, and that's what you've just described happens frequently.
Right.
So the employer will suddenly start taking off responsibilities until they're actually in their stripped, and then they'll say, sorry, it looks like there's redundancy lurking around here. And that's been contrived. It really was. So put together deliberately.
With redundancy, it's interesting. Like, how can you manufacture a redundancy? Is it that way, and what is an unfair redundancy?
Well, redundancy, there's two things to it. It's when a person's role becomes superfluous to the needs. So that means there's no need for that role any longer. It means the employer can't replace that person. So they've gone. And there's two aspects to a redundancy. One is was it a genuine reason? And the next one is what was the process? Was it fair and reasonable? Now, the courts have set the precedents for redundancy process, and the employer has an obligation to go through consultation with the employee. It doesn't happen in every other country, but New Zealand, we have to do it. So even though it's when a business has lost all its clientele, for example, and got to make people redundant, writing's on the wall pretty obviously, but still they have to go through a process of can you offer me any other alternatives to make you redundant? I'll be happy to listen to them and give them time to get some expertise and time. It just goes on, which is an arduous, difficult process for employers, particularly when they're going through tough times themselves.
I've got lots of more questions, but I think we're out of time. I would love to have you on again.
Yeah, I love it.
And have part 2. What is your biggest case that you've done that you won and you were so proud of?
Oh, that would be one of my favourite cases would be where an employee was he'd been escalated up to take over a managerial role, and he was taking it over incompetently as well. And then for some reason the employer just turned on them, and then there was allegations and all sorts of horrible things happened to it. It was just a pure attack on his character, his personality, and his ability to be productive. So anyway, we took it on, and we got him quite a nice little package. Thank you very much. So he wandered off very awesome. Happy.
And his relationship with the employer is okay? So
no, it gets to a point, and that's where I was thinking about your friend. If somebody wants you gone, you're better off to get out of there and start afresh somewhere else. So what you want to leave with is a reference, a work record, intact, confidentiality in regards to the reason you left, and then you could say it's for your own purposes to move on, and your reputation intact. So that's really important, but you're better off to move on and get out of there, because that employer doesn't want you, and they don't get over it very, very quickly.
Max, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You've been a wealth of knowledge and inspiration, and I appreciate you.
You can invite me back anytime. I love coming here. Thanks, Nina. That was lovely.
Thank you. I look forward to it.